Good night, good evening, and welcome to Mindful Live 476. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for joining me. It's currently 9:58 p.m. on the 18th of March in the year of our Lord 2025. Ronnie, stop it. 2025. Thank you for joining me. Once you're on the inside, if you are looking at this live on TikTok, double tap the screen real quickly. Just 2 quick taps and send those likes going up. And no, not just 2 quick taps. Keep doing the 2 quick taps and get those likes really going up. It doesn't only mean you could like one time, you could like over and over and over. Keep them going. And if you are viewing this live on YouTube also, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit that like button, allow the like button to feel your presence, and drop a comment if you have something to say. I do read all of those comments and I appreciate them all. It really does help with the algorithm and getting the videos out there. So if you want to help support and push this out some more, well, you know what to do. Hit that like, share and comment button out there on YouTube. Good night, Mr. Nibbles. Good night, KP Biggs. Yes, it's a big night. It's a big night. Why? Well, elections have been called. It's a surprise election, if you will, a snap election called by our new Prime Minister, fresh on the job, recently receiving his instruments of appointment. And one of his first duties, one of his first roles, election. Uncle Stuarty. Hey, talking about Uncle and Stuarty, I saw Mr. Stewart's two boys. Okay, Tree, happy birthday, Tree. How old are you, Tree? 598 years old. You know those trees be out there really long. Yeah, I saw Mr. Stewart's 2 boys. Never saw them really in the public fray before, so that's an interesting development. Well, happy birthday, Tree. You're a young tree. All right, let's see if we could jump into some of these stories and see what they're talking about. Hey. Mango or coconut? Jokes. We got jokes out here. All right. General election called April 28th. Prime Minister Young calls general election. Prime Minister the Honorable Stuart R. Young, Senior Counsel, has advised Her Excellency Christine Kangaloo, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, to dissolve Parliament with effect from midnight. As of midnight tonight on Tuesday, 18th March 2025, in accordance with Section 68 of the Constitution. The Prime Minister has also advised the President that in accordance with Section 33 of the Representation of the People Act, writs of election for the 2025 general election are to be issued on the 18th day of March 2025 and are to fix Friday, 4th April as nomination day and Monday, 28th April as polling day. Yeah, it's right around the corner. Police ready for general election 2025. We are always ready. So said Acting Police Commissioner Junior Benjamin when asked if the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is ready to treat with the April 28th general election. When Mr. Young wins, Trini Hotep says, I would love to see how you will run this government and this country. It's going to be curious to me because really and truly, I am clueless as to Mr. Young's political ideology. We don't talk about those things in Trinidad and Tobago. I would hope that some reporter at some point in time would have a discussion with him about something a little deeper, something, of his general outlook on what the government is supposed to do, what he foresees the government aiming at doing that kind of stuff. Those boys were a best kept secret. Yeah, apparently. I didn't know they existed. I didn't know they were there. Good for you, Stuart T. But I see conspicuously the absence of their mother. I don't know if there's anything there, but it's interesting that in a country like ours, where, you know, people don't shy away from their fair share of bacchanal, that you don't really hear much of that. Watson Duke entering Bago election again, I saw that. Yo, Michael Modesto, Nathan referred to that man as bulletproof. Stop it. Stop it. The man took the minimum 6 weeks allowed by law. Yes, he did. That's as snappy as a snap election could be snapped. I want to see debates in Trinidad. Young Cams Pandy. I think Mrs. Cams, sorry, my respect. I think Tanti Cams wouldn't have a good showing in that, to be very honest with you. I don't think she'd have a good showing. I think Michaela may have a positive showing. I think Young is a pretty good talker, but I don't know if I'd expect a whole heaping lot from our former Prime Minister. Tell the people good night. Good night. You have to watch the people and tell them good night. Good night. Laters, folks. Later. That's the host, just by the way. In case you're wondering. I like how America does it. Political debate in this country would be good enough. Yes, I think it would be good too. It's not that I don't want it. Kamala running gives PNM win by default. I've said that over and over, Mr. Nibbles. I think it's a losing scenario to put up Mrs. Prasad Bisesa to run. I don't think that's a good idea. But the IRO says, election too close to major religious holidays. Interreligious organization head Pandit Lloyd Serju said the election date of April 28th and the resulting campaign period are disrespectful to the three major religions whose reflection periods fall within the period. Christians are currently observing Lent, which ends on April 17th, with Easter Monday on April 21st. A week before the election. Muslims are observing Ramadan, which ends on March 31st. Spiritual Shouter Baptist Day is celebrated on March 30th. Speaking to Newsday shortly after the announcement of the election on March 18th, Serju said these days are important. In my mind, they should have shown some respect and allowed a little space for the periods to be finished. They should have called it 5 weeks after the end of the Lenten period. But politicians don't really take on religion unless it suits them, and you can't really tell them what to do. ASJA acting president General Imam Ahmad Hossain said the campaign would not affect his members in any way. IRO speaking for who, Nathan? Listen, were you telling me? Tolle says Auntie Michaela might stand a better chance than Tanti Cams in a debate. I mean, I don't know if Michaela reached Auntie. That is sister in Michaela right now. People don't understand any succession of poor governance will destroy a nation. He feels we in England where the Catholic Church rules the crown. Your rave stopping you from dipping your finger like Venezuela and Haiti, many your religion. The major religious bodies in the country. That comment I'm making. All right. Yeah, I don't actually think this is much of an issue, to be very honest. I think if people are very pious about their religious views, I think the election wouldn't have much of an effect either way. And I think if they weren't pious, well, then they weren't pious either way. I really don't think this is too much of an issue. And it wouldn't be the first time that elections have been around important holidays and religious festivals and all of that. At the end of the day, Trinidad Trinidad and Tobago is well interspersed with holidays all throughout the year. So anytime you call an election, generally there may be something at hand somewhere along the way, to be very honest. So I don't know if this is much of an issue to raise. But Tanti Kams has a different view. Kamala, Young hurriedly called election. Opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar has called Prime Minister Stuart Young's calling of an April election date a hurried attempt to avoid United National Congress legal action against him. Stuart was afraid of what the UNC was going to do to him in the courtrooms. Shortly after the office of the Prime Minister published the election date, Persad-Bissessar stated that the announcement was an attempt to avoid facing the courts on what she termed his illegal and unconstitutional appointment to the post. Last week, Persad-Bissessar warned that Young would face the brilliant UNC lawyers in the country's courts should he replace outgoing Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley following his resignation. The opposition leader also did not attend Young's swearing-in ceremony on Monday, telling the Express that it was unconstitutional. "I will not attend anything to give legitimacy to something that I think is unconstitutional. I do not intend to go to that ceremony," she said. Asked for a reaction to the election date, Persad-Bissessar doubled down on a stance, adding that Young would have to face an internal election prior to the general elections. Tolle says, so the president break the law too. Apparently what Mrs. Persad-Bissessar is alleging. Young and the PNM fully well know that his appointment is illegal and unconstitutional. His appointment would have been shown to be unconstitutional in the courts, and he would have then been forced to face a PNM internal election before the general election. Penny would have decimated him in any internal election, and the PNM financiers backed coup would have been put down, she said. But here's the thing. If it's unconstitutional and illegal, how is he calling the election date? If he was appointed illegally, how is he out here calling the election date? Then Mrs. Persad-Bissessar is supposed to boycott that election as an illegal and unconstitutional farce. Listen, if I wake up in the morning and say I am now the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and I declare and decree the next general election is going to be September 1st. Nobody is going to take me seriously. Nobody is going to campaign based on that. So, if he is illegal and unconstitutionally in that position, then don't worry about the election, because that's an illegal and unconstitutional election too. How can a man who is not rightfully the Prime Minister call the date of the election? Interesting. Where are the law lords? The law lords are in London. They're in London doing their thing. And you know, to be very honest, I don't agree with Mrs. Persad-Bissessar that this was hurriedly done. I don't think that's the case. I think this was planned all since last year. I think this was all planned since Mr. Hines stepped down in November last year. This was all in the running up. Since Stuart Young was acting as Prime Minister, every chance Dr. Rowley got, this was all in the run-up. I think even down to the snap election, I believe was planned. If you think back and hear how Dr. Rowley was talking about when the election would be and when he would leave as political leader in the party, his suggestions kind of sounded like this. He was saying that he will not call election. Dr. Rowley said he would not call election, but he believes it will be called very soon. I think this was all laid out in their plan. I think, and I keep saying this, for those who PNM till they're dead and have PNM tattooed on their heart, you all should probably get Dr. Rowley tattooed on your lungs. Because I think him and whoever his cabal, if you want to call them that, his team might be, have been planning and well executed a succession of leadership with a design to go straight back into power, making it or attempting to make it as seamless as possible. I wonder how many places in the world have we seen political movements like this while seeming as seamless and free from contention as we're seeing it. Like, it's either if you are a PNM faithful, you should be excited by this, or if you're not, this is kind of scary. And if PNM is showing this level of organization, if they indeed planned this since last year mid, and they've been working and executing this plan, and the UNC seems like they're just chasing ghosts the whole time with the same one, this is kind of scary. This is kind of PNM for a long time. Guardian Legend says undercover dictatorship. No, actually not. Because the machinations were within the legal framework of our government. Mrs. Prasad Bissessa said quite a few times that the government, what they did was they robbed the people of their ability to choose a leader, to vote for the prime minister, to elect a prime minister. We were robbed of our opportunity to elect a prime minister, but there's one problem with that in our political system. Anybody could tell me what the problem is with Ms. Prasad Bissessa saying we were robbed of our opportunity to elect a prime minister? Anybody knows what the problem is with that in our system? Exactly, Daniel Knights. We don't vote for prime ministers. We don't vote for our prime minister. Our prime minister is selected by being supported by the majority of the members of parliament. The MPs select the prime minister. We don't elect our prime minister. And that's what they did out in Tobago. Dr. Rowley grabbed camp, carried them out in his homeland, locked them in a room, and trashed out the support. So by the time they came back out, Young already had majority support of the majority of MPs. He already had the support of the majority of MPs. So it was a given. That's why the president could easily put him into the position. If Mrs. Prasad Bissessa was sure that Stuart Young was wrongly placed as prime minister, the solution wasn't to go to the courts, it was to call a vote of no confidence, because that means he would not have the support of the majority of MPs. Master Mix Promo says he was chosen by higher powers. Maybe they selected him, but he was chosen by the MPs. It's the MPs. So maybe the higher powers were the ones that did the selection in the meta narrative sense. But in terms of the specifics, he was selected by the MPs. And I don't doubt there was some trading, some horse trading that went on for that. Mrs. Penny, as Attorney General, is straight out of left field. That's a very strange move. But when Mrs. Penny seems to have been the one very likely to challenge, you don't doubt that there was some trading that went on behind the scenes that we are not privy to. And this is why I'm saying, yes, it is scary in the sense of if you're worried about one party holding on to power in our country for a very long time. But it also shows some skillful political machination in the back room. Somebody made the negotiations necessary, because you could talk about higher powers how much you want, but every person inside of Parliament is to their own right a higher power by themselves. They are all millionaires in the Trinidad context. They all have some power, they all have some support, and if you cross them, I don't think every single MP is as easy as seeing some, and we know when people say higher power, they mean some 1%, and when they say 1%, they mean some Syrian. So let's not browbeat people and beat around the bush. I don't believe that some Syrian makes a phone call to any and all of the MPs and they just say, yes, master, we are going to obey you. No, that's not how it goes. It's a trading game. You have to trade, wheel and deal. And somebody did the wheeling and dealing very skillfully. Daniel Knight says Kamala knows fully well it's legal and that's why she didn't reach in the court on Monday evening. Yeah, I don't doubt they would have reached in the court, but it's all a farce, because they have the lawyers to keep some of those things going. So I don't doubt that they would have reached in the court if given a chance. They are willing to do those things. They are willing to throw lawsuits just to see how it would go. So I would not have been surprised. And they do have skillful lawyers. That's not a lie. Watson Duke officially enters race as Tobago's election battle begins. Master Mix Promo says he will be the best PM this country will ever have. Who is that? Stuart Young? You have a lot of faith in him? Or are you talking about Dr. Rowley as he departed the role? Because I don't know if I'll put him up there necessarily. I would not put him up there, I'll see, actually. And what I'm saying is not that he was very skillful as Prime Minister. I would say Dr. Rowley's skill in the end here excelled in party politics. Party politics. Young, well, I'm glad for the hope you have in him. I hope that however long his tenure as Prime Minister is, I hope that he is very successful indeed. All parties does have to trade with them. Yes, all parties do, but it shows that somebody was very skillful at it. Michael Modesto says, Cam say what it is her base want to hear. But your base isn't going to win you the election. UNC has seen this for a while. Honestly, I'm just happy that Young is young, no pun intended. That's a saving grace, to be honest. Mr. Springer, you're smart. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Watson Duke officially enters race as Tobago's election battle begins. Watson Duke, leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, has confirmed he will contest a seat in the 2025 general election, setting the stage for a fierce battle in Tobago. The April 28th election date okay, was announced on Tuesday, and both the PDP and People's National Movement are preparing for a heated contest in Tobago East and Tobago West. Duke, who lost to Ayana Webster Roy in Tobago East by 1,261 votes in 2020, has not yet revealed which seat he will contest. However, he hinted at his candidacy in an interview with Guardian Media, saying, "Our candidates are ready, myself and the other candidate. So I let it be known by tomorrow." Dukey boy. On the other side, Ansel Dennis, PNM Tobago Council political leader, said his party is fully prepared to defend both seats. "We are ready like Freddy. As we are aware, the PNM is the only party to have introduced all our candidates to the public. So we are ready for this election," Dennis said. He added the PNM's campaign will focus on its track record. "In Tobago, our focus is to ensure we retain the 2 Tobago seats. We will be going to the people of Tobago with a very potent campaign based on the PNM's achievements and very impressive track record on the island, even from a central government perspective." And you see, this is a point to show that I don't think that it was hurriedly done, as Tantikams is alleging. Because the PNM display of all candidates on the weekend kinda is a signal that they were going to call and launch that election. Which article am I reading? I'm reading Watson Duke officially enters race as Tobago's election battle begins, from the Trinidad Guardian, guardian.co.tt. Tobago will decide the election by the looks of it. Well, I think if Tobago is deciding the election, I think then it's much better in the PNM's favor, because I don't see the TPP really challenging them. I think the TPP has lost steam. And then especially if the PDP throws their hat in the ring. PDP and TPP are heading and aiming for the same voting bloc. Rick says, "What the PNM do for Tobago people?" Listen, I'm not a Tobagonian, but we went through these kind of discussions many times. Here's what this is these are the statements like I was talking about last night, where when you hear somebody say something, you could kind of get where they get their political learning from. If a Tobagonian or anybody is saying the PNM has done nothing for Tobago, you know that their brain has been addled by political rhetoric and they are not thinking straight. You could just assume that already. You could start with that presumption and be very safe for it. Very safe. Because whether you think that the PNM did enough, whether you think that they did it in the right way, whether you think they were headed in the right direction, to say that they did nothing, absolutely nothing, when the island is all employed by the state, let's not even go there. J Maka 868 says, "Is it fair that a person gets elected for PM for a few weeks and benefit from taxpayers?" What do you mean by that? TPP will come with their corruption talk and people might buy into it, just like the last CHA election. I don't understand fully what you mean, J Maka. That a person gets elected for PM for a few weeks? What do you mean benefit from taxpayers? In what way? Ooh. Tobago Winston spoiler, best chance of a third party alone was given a safe seat. TPP can't come with corruption when he's speaking of pension as a PM, or if somebody comes in for just a short time, they are able to access pension. Well, the reality is that's the way how the game is played in terms of employment. Like, in terms of what bothers me most, I don't know if that's extremely high on my bothered list, because that's the game that is being played all the time. It's the nature of it all. And to be very honest, I don't think Mr. Young is gunning for pension from a 3-week stint as, 6-week stint as Prime Minister. I don't think that's his aim. I don't think Mr. Stuart Young went into that role looking to collect pension after 6 weeks. I mean, and if I have a problem with the remuneration package, which I do, I have a problem with the remuneration package in general. But if someone gets the job even for a short period of time, I don't think that a short period of time should stop them from being paid for the job. I mean, it is what it is. Good night, Krimak. Good night, good night. TPP ready for April 28 election. The Tobago People's Party is ready for the upcoming general election. In a statement, the deputy political leader, Faith Brebnor, said the TPP is ready. We welcome all Tobagonians to our special convention on Sunday, March 23rd, as we move towards winning Tobago East and West. Lose if Young lose? What does that mean? Kamala is still getting PM pension and opposition leaders say, yeah. Good night, Matic boss. And Griffith, has Mr. Griffith turned a new leaf? Are y'all buying the brand new Double G, who is a much more reasonable and measured fellow? Griffith urges clean campaign ahead of April 28th election. Political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, Gary Griffith, said his party anticipated the April 28th election date and has been preparing accordingly. We have not been caught with our pants down. We have not been ambushed. We anticipated this date, which is why we actually had our first political meeting in St. Joseph just last week, Griffith said. Griffith suggested that other political parties calling for a general election may not have been as prepared. Be careful what you ask for. You may very well get it, he said. He described this election as a rare opportunity for voters to choose a legitimate third party, something the country has not seen in nearly 2 decades. This is the first time in 18 years that the country will have an opportunity for a third choice. The last time they had a legitimate bona fide third choice would have been in 2007 with the Congress of the People, he said. To those 148,000 odd persons who are still around, this is your opportunity yet again to vote for a political party not based on blind loyalty, but based on if you believe that the party can provide you with what you require over the next 5 years. Griffith and Hope had an argument, I heard, and Karen had to take a walk. Nunes Teixeira, I don't think she has much political capital, to be very honest. Good night. My biggest fear, if PNM wins, UNC needs to get their game hat on. I don't know. I don't know what it would take for the UNC to get that game hat on, because I think the writing has been on the wall about this for some time now. Dr. Rowley was a winning candidate and he still stepped down. Ronnie says he has changed since his wife being sick. He's much softer. I read that. I read about his wife's illness. So maybe that might be the case. Good evening, Anderson. Griffith accused the rival political party of deliberately sowing discord. First off, let's go on. He called for a peaceful election season and warned against divisive tactics. This year is going to be a general election. It is not a war. So I will ask those individuals, please do not let politicians deliberately go out to cause division, hatred between our citizens of this country. There is going to be a day called April 29th, and we will all be citizens of this country. Griffith accused the rival political party of deliberately sowing discord. Yes, there's a political party actually contracted someone to spit heat and division and bitterness in the hope that they will cause them to win votes by pain, divide and conquer. We have no intention to go down that road, he said. I will ask all political parties and politicians, let us try to keep it clean. Let us not try to divide the country because of our greed for power. And I think he's talking about the UNC. I think he's talking about the UNC. And as I said earlier on, beside Miss Prasad Bisasa staying far longer than her general political welcome as it may seem, the party's tactics, I think, needs to evolve. It needs to evolve. I saw people in the protest about the legality and constitutionality about Stuart Young's appointment. I saw people in that protest in the savannah, not very excited bunch it seems, but I saw them with placards calling Dr. Rowley a dictator. It's like the use of Nazi in American politics where everybody's a Nazi. How could you have called Mr. Manning a dictator? And he called a snap election when it seemed like he was unpopular, and when he lost, he left his party and bowed out in disgrace. Well, not in disgrace, but bowed out. How could you call him a dictator? On what basis? And then, with no sense of irony, with no kind of internal reflection and looking at the words they say with any kind of criticality, they went straight on to calling Dr. Rowley a dictator too. Okay. Now that Dr. Rowley is leaving, they are continuing to call him a dictator. I feel like some people don't really understand what the word means. I feel like they don't get the meaning of that word. They keep using it and they don't know the meaning. It's strange. It's a strange thing, really and truly. Like, get another attack vector. Get some other way to get your message across. And the idea that what your intention is for all of your party faithful is that anyone who is a UNC supporter mustn't just be a UNC supporter. They must literally despise the PNM and their leadership. Your presence means something. Dr. Rowley never went in the hood to speak to ghetto youths. To be honest, Mr. Nibbles, as far as my grievances with Dr. Rowley, going in the hood to speak with ghetto youths is near the bottom. Because I don't think Dr. Rowley going in the hood to speak to ghetto youths is going to stop the ghetto youths from ghetto youthsing. That's a cultural problem. A cultural problem that's not going to be solved by a prime minister coming and talking to them. It's like the idea that a basketball court is going to solve crime in a hotspot area. No. You're going to get a block on the basketball court. That's what you're going to get. He tried his hand at dictatorship, though, Fireflame says. When did he do that, Fireflame? On what basis would you say that? Like, if you're talking about the COVID-19 era, then I would say that comparatively, Dr. Rowley may have been less dictatorish than many others in the Western world. So I wouldn't say he tried his hand at dictatorship even. I would say that he was an abrasive man. He was, I think, more bossy and had a kind of air about him than I found necessary. That's some criticisms I'd leveled there. But I don't know if I'll say there was anything close to dictatorship. Ravindra Rajkumar says, bro, it doesn't matter who in power, UNCP and nobody does walk in weary until they need a vote. Fact. He's a Scorpio, that's all the explanation, Daniel Knight says. And I see that looks like a Scorpio sign next to your name too, so you would know. Nathan, it was tighten your belt, then I never tell all you that. Listen, Dr. Rowley wasn't always honest. There are some things he said that didn't turn out so. The whole, we are not going to close down Petrotrin, and he repeated it for emphasis, and then they closed down Petrotrin. I mean, there are some things out there that, you know, they are legitimate criticisms you could level out here. There are legitimate criticisms you could level at him out here. I don't know if dictatorship is one. And the idea that you need your supporters to hate the opposing political party, I think that's a self-defeating, toxic kind of situation where anyone who interacts for long enough with a PNM member or a PNM politician, and the PNM member or politician manages to show them that they're just a normal person with their own motivations, attempting to do what they can do, you're going to lose that whole hatred doctrine that you have. Well, yes, Mikhail Modesto, it's a technicality, but we understand that technicality. But effective nonetheless, Trini Hotep says. It is effective at creating an extremely militant, hardcore base that is immovable. And the UNC has that. The UNC has a very strong base, but their base would only be shrinking. That's not something you readily gain a base from. If you attempt to preach hatred politically, it's not something that's easy to invite others to. J. Max says, if we lose our thoughts and put PNM back, tax and more tax. Anderson says, Akash, brilliant journalist, was his kryptonite. X for doubt, on all accounts. To be honest, people need to stop voting on race and vote for the person going to fix the roads, our economy, but nobody will. They have no vision, J. Max says. Again, that's wrong. Like, if you're lodging a complaint against the PNM, how could the complaint on the party that pioneered the whole Vision 2020, then Vision 2030, then every time a different vision and all of this? How could you say they have no vision? Tell me you disagree with their vision. Tell me that their vision is lackluster. Tell me that their vision takes us through the depths of corruption. Tell me all of that. But to tell me they have no vision when they come belting out that this is our vision, this is our vision, this is our vision, it's something that you're asking me to be a fool to believe. Fireflame says, just off the promise of no property tax and knock it on the bandit, UNC getting my vote, Fireflame says. The property tax issue, yes, I would prefer no property tax. One, I am not sure if the UNC is going to do that, because the UNC were part of the ruling government for 5 years, had the opportunity to delete the property tax from our law books and did nothing. They left it to be renewed just after their party lost power. So give me a ease up on whether they will do the tax or not. Tantikam say, I don't want this money, this extra salary, I really don't want it, but they're forcing me to take it. I call cockamamie. No one can force you to take money like that. You could always give the money back. Give us an ease on that. So on the idea that somehow they would be really different on the taxing scale, I don't know how you get that. And here's the problem I have with the knock it on the criminals promise. I like that. I really do. I hope and I wish we get easier access to firearms. But telling the country knock it on the criminals is not a policy directive. How are you going to facilitate us knocking it on the criminals? How? And here's the issue. People don't dig in for specifics. So Tantikams would say the Castle Doctrine, the stand your ground laws. But here's the reality, as I've said over and over about this. In Trinidad and Tobago, the problem we have is not that if you knock it on a criminal, you're going to get in trouble. And that's what the Castle Doctrine, that's what the stand your ground laws are about. Those laws are for when the criminal comes in and you knock it on them, the police and the legal system won't punish you for it. But that's already the case in Trinidad and Tobago. How often do you see anyone prosecuted for knocking it on a criminal in Trinidad and Tobago? How often? So the problem isn't stand your ground or Castle Doctrine. The problem is the police commissioner has the legal purview of determining who gets an FUL, and the general view is that that is stringently limited. How are you going to change that? That's the issue. So knock it on the criminal sounds all well and good, but how? My opinions on Michaela. I don't know. And I put my opinions on Michaela kind of in the same boat with Stuart Young. My problem is I have no idea what their political philosophy is. I don't know what their difference in how they want to see Trinidad go is. I just don't know. So I don't have an opinion on her personally like that. Because I don't know. I don't know. I mean, she talks generally good, but most new politicians talk generally good. She is a good orator. She has good word choices, but I mean, her daddy was Mr. Pandey himself. So I'm not surprised that she has oration skills. If I were to choose between her and Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, I would choose her. As I said, between her and Young, I don't know what the difference really is. If Imbert also retired along with Rowley and Hines, would have been a strategic move for PNM. Yeah, it would have been. But as I said, somebody did a lot of wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. And it seems like they could not have wheeled and dealed to get Imbert out. I think they tried. There was a little slight wave and disturbance around him going back up for MP, and whether he was going to and who was going to challenge him, and etc., etc. I wouldn't doubt they tried to squeeze him out, and they just didn't have the cards in hand to be able to do it. That's my guess, to be very honest. Because I think, watching the moves they made, they may have tried. Yes, he was removed, but I mean out, like Heinz out. I'm pretty sure our constitution protects self-defense, fire flee. So, like, that's my issue. That's my issue with the politics. You tell us, knock it on them, stand your ground. Get a little more specific. How are you going to do this? I am not one that buys into the visceral hatred for the PNM. PNM never kicked my dog. They never come in and thief my food from my fridge. So I don't have a personal grievance with PNM like that. And the idea of attempting to get political support by needing people to hate PNM to the maximum, that's not going to work. I know those allegations, Mr. Nibbles. Knowing we are an emotional population, Osei says, get to know who your candidate is. They ain't tax your property, Mr. Springer. Fire flame right to property and liberty. Raise your gas 3 times. And what would the UNC have done differently, Fire Flame? What do you think the UNC would have done differently to stop those things? If that was a get to you, they done lost in jail. Quite possibly he would have been. Anderson says Imbert is now in charge of WASA and T-Tech. He is going to raise these payments. Remember, we didn't riot. Well, we wouldn't know, Mr. Springer. Yes, that's it. We wouldn't know. So the argument isn't whether I think the removal of the fuel subsidies is a bad thing by itself. It's comparing the reasoning that PNM gave for their removal of the fuel subsidy to the reasoning the UNC is giving that they could have kept it. It's guilt by association. That's his stepdaughter, and I think they aren't even step anymore. So that's his former stepdaughter, I believe. So be that as it may. So it's similar like the Petrotrin argument. The video I made, and it's still up on my page right now, still gathering comments. People still angrily arguing inside of the comments there. And the idea I'm saying is, okay, you think Petrotrin should not have closed. Your argument cannot be Petrotrin should not close. No. Your argument has to be, you look at the reasons that the government gave for closing Petrotrin, because they gave reasons. They outlined what they said were the good reasons they had to close it. And you have to argue against those reasons. You can't just be, it should not close, it should not close, it should not close. So, and that's the argument for me, even in the property tax and the raising of the removal of the fuel subsidy. Would the UNC have been able to find more gas and oil within our borders? Would the UNC have been able to find the money to service the Petrotrin loans to allow Petrotrin to become profitable in true fact? Where would they have found the money to do it? Would the UNC have dropped back our budget more than the PNM so that they didn't need as much income to counteract their expenditure, because the government tries to at least come as close as possible to balancing the budget? How much you spend, you have to take in some. And if oil and gas is dropping, you need some kind of tax to keep the spending going. But to me, nearly everything the UNC says and the UNC in action is more spending. So if the UNC intends to spend more, they intend to keep the fuel subsidies, they intend to bail out Petrotrin, and they intend to stop the dragon gas deal, then where would the money come for all of this? Like, okay, this is your plan. Fine, I like the idea of it. I wish Petrotrin could have been a beautiful, profitable industry helping the country make a lot of money. I wish the fuel subsidies could have remained on in full. I wish, but you have to give me the how of how you're going to do these things. Can we diversify our company, our economy, you mean? Of course we can. And every government has spoken about it. The People's Partnership spoke about it, but only when they were ready to leave government in 2015, in their beautiful 2015 what they call the promises document, again, that whole bit of lies and BS they like to give us. They spoke about the silver, green, and gray economies that they want to do in this country. But you had everything for manifesto. You had everything for 5 years. Where was the silver, green, and gold economy for the 5 years? Rajkumar Ratan says the Malcolm Jones 3 billion plus the AV drilling scandal caused the closure of Petrotrin. Here's my problem with that, as I've addressed many times. The Malcolm Jones 3 billion was an overcharge on necessary projects for Petrotrin. So, what you have to say there is you believe the UNC would have run those projects in a more efficient manner than Malcolm Jones under the PNM. That's what you're telling me you believe. Because the projects had to be done. The projects had to be done in Petrotrin. The refinery had to be upgraded. So, are you saying you believe that the UNC is generally more efficient at government projects than the PNM? Because I'd ask you, what is your basis of evidence for that? And I could tell you my basis of evidence is that you speak about the UNC, what about Colard, how much money did he steal under the PNM? I urge you to go with your government name on Facebook and say Calder Hart. I am saying that you should say this. I am not alleging this, but go with your government name on Facebook, tag Calder Hart, and say he stole money. Please do it, Kyron. You do that. And then you would see how those things go. Because Mr. Calder Hart has told us his residence in Miami, and anytime we're ready, he is willing to fly over for a court case. And he has never lost any of his cases that they have tried him on quite yet. So you go make that accusation. As I was saying, here's my evidence. Here's my evidence that the UNC isn't more efficient. Because some of the projects that Malcolm Jones and the PNM undertook carried over into the UNC. And let me give you all a guess. Can anybody guess if the ballooning of prices decreased, stayed the same, or increased under the UNC? What you all think? The projects that Malcolm Jones and the PNM ballooned in cost, that cost Petrotrin its lifeline. Do you think when the UNC came in power, they decreased the cost of those projects? Left them the same, or ballooned them more? And then, when you answer that, tell me, do you think the problem was Malcolm Jones and the PNM and those projects? Or was it how the state runs companies, PNM or UNC? Because Malcolm Jones at the head isn't the only man executing these projects. It's the whole system of Petrotrin. It's why Caroni closed down too. It's why Caroni closed down. Why couldn't Caroni remain profitable? Same reason as Petrotrin. Why BWIA had to be shut down and restructured? So, you see, it's not even like I want to sound like I'm defending a party, but this is why I say you can't get your brain addled on partisan politics. You have to be able to look at it honestly. Otherwise, you get lost in a bubble and everybody could see that you're seeing things upside down and you're confident that's the way it is. Petrotrin closed down because of PNM and Malcolm Jones, 3 billion. But all those projects were necessary projects. The UNC was doing the same thing with the pricing of the projects. It seemed like our government was just incapable with the Petrotrin establishment of doing these things. We were too corrupt of a country to do it. And people say, well, they didn't have to close down Petrotrin. They just had to restructure it. And I say to myself, what do you think changing the company into 3 different entities is? Isn't that restructuring? You all know Paria Fuel and Heritage exist. Hey, look the clown himself, man. Millet, look the clown himself. And I didn't resurface. I was always on the surface, sir. People have to understand that PNM has been in power for most of the time, correct? Citizens pay the costs, politicians don't really care how much. Fact. And you see, this is the issue when you get bought into the political narrative. So you get bought into Malcolm Jones and the PNM. While, yes, there is that, but somehow you lose focus that the other group continued the same and worse. Nathan, I respect you, but it seems you are on the line of the present government. I gone. Good night, everyone. Good night, brother. No. Me and Millet go back way back. We go back way back. I know why I call him that. So give UNC a chance. This wicked PNM show up to campaign. Where you was, bro? How much they paying you? I ain't getting a cent, you know. I ain't getting a cent. Maybe I have to look out. I have to go and appeal to see if somebody could give me something. I can remember when UNC was in power, things much better. I think when the UNC was in power in 2010 to 2015, the business climate was better. I always say this. I think the UNC ran a much more open market kind of economic atmosphere. But also, there's a consideration of the price of natural resources at that time. Fireflame says, I sound a little PNM-ish for real. I know I would. I'm sure I would. Because, and this, I spoke about this at the very beginning of the live. Because I am not of the view that the parties are the same. I am not of that view. I think there are differences you could highlight between each party. And you could look at those differences and have a choice. I don't think it's a good strategy to depend on people disliking PNM for PNM's sake to get them to support you. I don't think that's a good idea. It does not work. Because me sounding PNM-ish is not an insult to me. That doesn't make me revert and go into my shell. That's not an insult. I have never held any party card, but either way, it's not an insult. The problem is, the UNC has been in opposition so long, it's like their hearts have blackened in their technique for politics. They believe there must be visceral hatred for the PNM in order for people to choose against them. Fireflame says if a man could give the people who protected him 4% and give himself 40, speaks volumes. It does. And I think that was a horrible thing. Karen, we have the highest crime rate in our history, and PNM was in power for the last 10 years. I don't think the PNM is good on crime, and I've said this numerous times for the people who have been in the lives before. The thing is, I think the UNC's best avenue, best lane to go down is crime. That's the best lane to tackle the PNM on, crime. Because there's no contingency argument the PNM could really make for that. Because, as I said, with the Petrotrin arguments, you have to actually argue the argument. With the economic arguments, there's the reality of the change in fuel price and all of that. Okay, those are debatable. But I don't think the crime situation is one very debatable. And the thing about crime is people actually have a visceral reaction to that. People feel something about the crime. I'll vote for increased electricity rates and increased water rates and property tax na man race. Like, people are still using this racial argument, and Stuart Young is the prime minister. Stuart Young is the person at the head of the... Like, what is the racial argument we're using? Let's, as Ronnie said, let's, bypass that. Get to something else. So, as I said, the crime, to me, is one where it's not really debatable. It's horrible, legitimately horrible. You can't try to coddle this in any way. You look at us on a world stage, on a global stage, and comparably to the world, crime is horrible in this place. Horrible. That, I think, is a really good avenue for the UNC. Legit paper says, what about the $2.5 billion fiasco? As I've said on this one, just like the Petrotrin, just like the economics, there are some arguments here. And again, someone who runs out and says the PNM thief $2.5 billion is displaying their ignorance of the issue, because that's not where the argument is. The argument is that there was an, what's the technical term for those accountants in here? An understatement because of an error made, and they were attempting to get it rectified past the deadline and bully the Auditor General to do it when she could not corroborate the information they're giving. They're just telling her, trust me, bro, make sure and do it. The thing is, the Auditor General is not even alleging that they stole the $2.5 billion. No one in and around the case is alleging the 2.5 is stolen. The main issue is Mr. Imbert's behavior in trying to get her to change the numbers after the deadline. What are your thoughts on Imbert calling the Auditor General on a personal phone? That's what I'm saying. That's what the issue was. And that's what even the Privy Council highlighted. That, and I think that may have something to do with why they're trying to get him out of the front line. Because I think he has exposure in terms of his behavior towards the independent office of the Auditor General. That's the issue. And when you're running with the PNM thief $2.5 billion, you're going to lose. Because that's not the allegation. What are my thoughts on the RIC proposal to almost double electricity rates? I hate it. I wish it doesn't happen. Those are my thoughts. Would the RIC's recommendation change if the government changes? I don't like the idea. But again, with things like the RIC and the increase in electricity rates, and even the property tax, Mr. Millet, here is what your argument has to be on that to convince me one way or the other. You have to look at what the PNM and the government are arguing are the reasons for this, and show me why those reasons are wrong. Okay, the property tax, they're saying, is designed to go directly to our regional corporations to aid in the repair and maintenance of the areas around your property. That's what they're saying. If that is true, I think they may actually get some support for that. So here's what you argue. Where's the proof that that's the case? Because there have been articles since they started collecting property tax where regional corporations are saying they haven't collected the taxes yet. So where are the taxes going? And that's where you make the argument. If you make the argument on just axe the tax, then where do we get the money for the repairs around our property? Why aren't the elites paying property tax also for their businesses? Isn't the property tax included on commercial buildings too? You're saying Trinidad and Tobago does not have a property tax on commercial buildings? Is that correct? That does not sound correct to me. That does not sound correct. The target of the election is always new voters. As much as we don't want it to be about race, it's difficult to ignore. Since it's a very much a factor we can't change. However, there is a lack of trust in that aspect. That money they collect going to the ministers and their financiers' pockets, Adventure Pro Ali says. Okay, Adventure Pro Ali, explain how that happens. Explain how that happens. Explain how the process of the property tax goes into the financiers' pockets. That's what you have to say. Just telling me, is the government going and thief this? Doesn't work. What are my predictions for the general election? My prediction for the general election is the same prediction for whatever Ms. Prasad Bisesa got in her last two elections. Kent, I will have to block you from the chat. Like, okay, we read this comment the first 5 times you said it. Do you have something else to say? You ask why people still talking race when Stuart is PM. Where else is PNM race base going? What makes you think that the base is based on race if they aren't voting for a man of their same race? Saying this as a new voter, it's scary. How you will ask me my sin thing, you know, and won't, and okay. I had a pelt. Under the Property Tax Act, Chapter 7604, all land in the country, including commercial properties, is subject to property tax. That's what I see here. What if I just vote for the ILP? I don't know if the ILP still exists. Thank you, J. Maka. I actually agree with that statement. Kent, my purpose of this live is the same purpose I've had for the last few years. Maybe you should have tuned in back then. Instead of being, let's not get into the adjectives. What's the ILP? The ILP was Mr. Jack Warner's party. You think the politicians who own commercial properties pay it, Nathan? I wouldn't doubt that they duck the tax, but that's not a strange thing. Nearly all wealthy people duck taxes wherever they could duck taxes. But this guy came in with a lie. This guy and his, whoever is paying him to keep repeating these foolish things and seeming himself and embarrassing himself, he came in with a bald-faced lie. Like, where did he get this from when the law, the actual tax act has it there? Why would you vote for an individual who you believe looks down on your ethnic group? And I understand that's how both parties, when they attempt to work with that, use. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think the PNM is based more on class and the UNC is based more on race. And it regularly strikes me as funny when I hear many people within the UNC claim that the PNM is a race-based party. I think they are seeing reflections, to be very honest. The PNM isn't about the race. They are about the class though. Very much so. So I think that's why oftentimes the campaigning style, the how they speak, what they do, is kind of speaking past each other to some extent. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Kent. It's always a pleasure when the garbage takes itself out. And thank you. I'll take that win. You never did say where you got your information that was incorrect from, and you never even admitted your incorrect information. PNM is becoming a communist party. Well, that's the thing with that institutionalized setup. That institutionalized setup is the perfect party for one-party rule, and the PNM is a party designed to run this country like the only party that there is and the only party that there will be running the country. That's the PNM's design. To you, PNM did a good job? No. But I guess that's all dependent on your relative good, what you see as good. I go and get my visa and work permit and move from Trinidad, yes? And go where? Go where, sir? Because Trumpy and those guys are not too sure they want you over there right now. They kinda cool on the long-term visitors. They cool. They don't want no more. I think PNM supporters enjoy suffering as long as PNM in power. Tribal voting, Kyron says. And I am sure that a PNM faithful would say the same thing about UNC. Statements like that just show me that you spend a lot of time on kick out the PNM and not enough time on the news, because statements like that win nobody to your cause. And the reason I sung PNM-ish is because there are quite a few UNC faithful currently in the chat making these statements that I keep going back to. This man, for real, you telling me PNM is the right way? Why? Where did I say PNM is the right way? And for those of us in the chat that have our sensible minds on, is, have I said PNM is the right way? Or is it that because you do not have a provable point to make, you believe that anyone that criticizes your false points must be for the other team? And this is what I've been highlighting since the start of the live, is the weakness of the UNC. These are the UNC's evangelists. These are the people the UNC send out there to attempt to get more supporters. These people. And this is the problem. This is why the UNC could never win an election on their own. And they will never, as long as they maintain these strategies. Kyron comes back with, how can you support the PNM? Just look what has happened in the last 10 years. What? Explain it. Show it. The UNC, Nikki, has there ever been an election the UNC won on their own? It's a kind of trick question. Technically, no. Technically, one. If you do your research, you would see half the things said on social media isn't true. I will say more than half. It might be closer to 90% aren't true JCers. So no, I am not. I wouldn't be surprised by that if I do my research that a lot of things are said untrue. I'm a conservatist. I belong to no party, but I know where the bad breads. I assume you mean conservative. And if you're a conservative, which are you talking conservative as in right-wing free market economy, or are you talking conservative as in socially conservative? Because if you're talking on the social conservative side, which party is more socially conservative in Trinidad and Tobago? Kyron says, I don't have to explain, bro. You don't look at news, facts, statistics. You want me to prove that? Sir, I read the news every day. That's what I do here every day. We read the news over and over every day. UNC is not the best, but it's the only choice for now. Based on what? You says, dude, their tools is to keep you in this rage loop. Carry on. Why two things can be true at once? Why can't why can't bad and good happen simultaneously? It can. Politicians thrive on divisions. Why do we continue to give them that power? What do you think about our PM calling election? Do you think it's a good move? I think it's a strategic move politically. I think you're reading the wrong country news though, Kyron says. Well, ask the guys in the chat. They've been here all along. And he says, who is you, boy? You on my profile, brother. Who is you? PNM win because the post of West, such as Diego Martin area, has more seats. Do you know why Diego Martin has more seats at Venture Pro, Ali? Ronnie, again, I hope everyone, because everyone who is in the live isn't in the chat. I hope all of you in the live are reading the arguments and the convincing style they are trying to use here. I pray that a UNC strategist is sitting somewhere in the live just reading the comments, not commenting, just reading and seeing how hopeless this seems. You all need to get a better outreach strategy. You need a better outreach strategy. These folks are not working. Shogunus needs to add seats too. Adventure Pro Ali, do you know why the seats are the way they are? Kirsten Cooper asks why it's a good political move. Explain. I think, and we've said this before, just to browse back over that, I think when you watch the succession of moves the PNM did, I think they planned this out thoroughly since last year. Since they started moving Mr. Hines out, since they started having Stuart Young acting as Prime Minister at every given opportunity, they seem like they were planning this move through. And it has been one of the most seamless transitions of power in political parties, probably anywhere in the world, in fact. And without giving the oppositions an opportunity to settle themselves into an argument straight into the election mood. And what's PNM evangelical outreach strategy? Kyron, are you on X, Twitter? If you're on X, Twitter, you will see what a lot of the general PNM outreach strategy is. The PNM at least on Twitter, attempts to position themselves as the future for the young professional. And they attempt over there to talk policy. Now, the truth is, I don't like those guys, and those guys seem way too far down the modern super liberal end for me. But it is a strategy, and it's a strategy that even people who may come from typically UNC homes may go to university, end up on Twitter, end up in that pressure cooker and squeeze a certain way and a certain way. And if the only defense they have when they end up on Twitter and everyone is telling them about the economic moves and their argument is PNM evil, because that's the only defense they have. PNM too wicked and the dirty and is a dictator. It won't stand. Yes, they are blue hats. Yes, they are. You all convinced Ronnie to vote now? PNM has a more unified party, however UNC has more qualified candidates and representatives. PNM is, and they boast about that, they are much more of an institution than UNC. But the thing is, as I am saying, the UNC to me can use some of those things to their benefit. That's the argument you make. We are the party not of the modus operandi. We are the party not of the status quo. If you want something to change, we are the party for it. That's how they got in 2010. The idea that this is the group that could do some change. But it's going to be very difficult to campaign and change when you have the same political leader from since Ohio. It's hard to campaign and change when you haven't changed your leader. So the PNM, in terms of the political strategy of it, can now campaign on both change and continuing success. They could talk out of both corners of their mouth and do so effectively. They could talk about the changing of the guard and young people in politics, and we are the one to do it, while also talking about, for those who think things are going right, maintaining the status quo and maintaining the success that we have done so far. They can say both. And what is the UNC? What is the UNC's defense? What is the UNC's defense? That is the same thing they were calling Manning, the same thing they were calling Rowley, the two men that leave the position. I am sure they're going to call Stewart that again. Dictator. Who you think cares? Who you think is moved by a placard calling Stuart Young a dictator? Who you think is bothered by you calling Bobby Head a dictator and calling him Bobby Head? Like that's going to change a vote. And my point isn't that the UNC does not have arguments. Kyron, I am 100% certain if you ask a PNM person about their continuing success, they would rattle off for you a book full of stuff that they see as their success. This is not me saying they have been successful. I am talking about political strategy. And what is the UNC's counter for it? What is the UNC's counter for it? The PNM too wicked? The PNM nasty? Rowley's a dictator? Petrochin and Malcolm Jones? They thief 2.5 billion. A whole lot of articles where it's evident you were fed a headline and you didn't read past the headline. That's not an effective strategy. Here's the simple thing. Give us a policy roadmap on how you are going to increase the firearm ownership for law-abiding citizens. Kyron says we don't care about political strategy, we need results. What gives you results, Kyron? Sue. That's like saying you're joining a football team and I don't care about training, you know. I don't care about training and planning, you know. I care about winning the match. How you plan to win the match? And Blue Hats, my problem, as I said, this has been the basic opposition strategy for years now, and it hasn't been working. Each time you have less and less people, a smaller and smaller group with the visceral hatred for the PNM. It's not working. What have you heard Michaela attempt to go back to that old politics? Listen, to some extent, Bastio Pandey could be seen as kind of the founder of that real dislike of the PNM. Does it sound like Michaela is going down that road? At all. They had 10 years for political strategy, and I think their strategy has only destroyed Trinidad. So you don't understand what I mean, Kyron. So I don't want to get insulted, but so are you not understanding the words coming out of my mouth? Is English your second language? Like, you're not understanding me. Why are you not answering my questions? Have you asked our resources to what cost to taxpayers? Well, with regards to the Dragon Gas deal, when asked about alternative, Rowley said extract. What's the question? Provide a united front. Exactly, UNC has so much. I'm not seeing your question, have you? Ask it again. Ask it again. I didn't see your question. What are your predictions for Tobago with the election? PNM victory. PNM victory. TPP and PDP is split. They already didn't deliver on their promises for the THA and they're split. And right now, on the swing up to election, a major part of their fallout is a lawsuit against Tobago contractors while it's alleged they're paying, and you know the PNM in Tobago is calling them UNC contractors. They're paying the UNC contractors the majority of the money for Tobago contracts. Here's the thing. I don't doubt that UNC contractors has a bit of a suggestion behind it. 1. 2. That suggestion works against the TPP because that's how they came into power in Tobago. Tobago first ignored Trinidad. We want to even be independent. So, how is that going to fit in for them? I don't think the TPP is going to win. I don't think the PDP is going to win. Avi says, do you agree with Rowley's comments on its alternatives if the Dragon Gas deal does not work out? The alternative being we drill? I don't know what there is to agree with on it. I think that is literally the alternative that is going to happen. Now, I think the real alternative is we need to diversify our economy and do a whole lot of other things, but I don't think that Trinidadians would want to diversify our economy, because I think to start that diversification, we need to free up labor to go through the economy and do a lot of different things. And to free up labor, we need to make certain things a little harder. So that CPEP, URP, easy money, done. So that easy public service where we're employing a whole chunk of the population for not that much work, done. Is our population willing to do that, to allow for that diversification? Or is it that we're willing to just say we want diversification, but actually we just really want to return to the status quo, get the oil money and give us some money, please, daddy government? UNC 25 political strategist is Philip and his 300 rage bait accounts. And it doesn't work. It does not work. It does not work. You are only fizzling out and stressing out your supporters. You are wearing your supporters thin. You are wearing your supporters thin. And the nature of the rage content, it's either somebody who is fully sold into the party and is buried within the party in terms of their job and everything, and they would do it from their regular profile, or it has to be an anonymous profile. The level of vitriol, hate, and bitterness that needs to be spewed to push that kind of campaign, most of them need to be done from anonymous profiles. And people don't take those profiles seriously. You are not spreading your message further. And okay, you don't care about political strategy, but how do you win if you don't invite more people into your party? If more people don't feel welcomed into your party? Like, I don't know how many more ways I could say it for the UNC. Somebody, the guy before asked if PNM is paying me. Listen, I feel if UNC were to pay me as a strategist, I might win the election for them. I feel, because there's a lot to argue on. The opposition party is always in a kind of beneficial position in terms of arguing, you know. Because you don't have any responsibilities, and you could look at the ruling party and see a million gaps. Which party do you think has the youth? I think the PNM has the youth. What has the UNC done to attract youth? And let me guess what the UNC supporters in this current chat would say. The PNM do wickedness, so the youths know that the PNM is a wicked party and the PNM failed the country, so they have to choose UNC. Like, if that's what causes youths to choose a party. Avi says UNC wins on policies all the time, PNM wins on hatred and anti-UNC. You believe that seriously, Avi? That's your honest outlook. That's your honest outlook of the political landscape in Trinidad and Tobago? The PNM remove gate program. They don't care about the youths. If I was the UNC strategist, I'm telling them ban all of if these guys are being paid, ban them. They're selling guns. They're working for the enemy. If you guys are being paid by the UNC to campaign, you all working for the PNM, I'm sure you all are double agents. Sometimes I feel UNC cares nothing about winning by their actions or inaction. I could wonder. The argument for gate can't be the PNM don't like youth, so they close on gate. Again, you have to argue with the reason the PNM said they closed down gate. So, you think it was unjustified to close down gate? Well, argue that. You can't say the PNM don't like youths, that's why they close down gate. That's not a believable thing. That's not a believable thing. The youths are not like before, where there was only TV6 and TTT. So where are the youths getting their information from now? Fire flame, youths building house and P&M run record to charge me $100 a bag come 26. Now that's a strategy. Now that's a strategy. Isn't it? Talk about the P&M running rock hard and allowing TCL to get a monopoly and run up the price of cement on us. Now there's an actual argument. So you tell me why they closed it down a program where youth could afford to learn a trade. GATE isn't about learning a trade. 1. 2. GATE actually incentivized many further learning institutions to increase their costs and offer students more nonsense degrees. Every degree isn't a good degree. And if you're willing to pay for every degree, people are going to start to do more nonsense degrees. The country has to balance how much we can pay. What are you talking about? Kyron, I feel like I'll stop interacting with you because I think your IQ is room temperature or something of the like. You aren't understanding these things. These are arguments made against government involvement in advanced education all over the world. The United States has entire parties devoted to arguing that the government should never give free education. Do you think that the reason people argue this is just because they hate children? Like, that's a first year student's understanding of the thing. And this is why you don't win in these discussions. If you come in the discussion as the P&M just hate youths, that's not true. It's not out of operation, Jay says. They just limited the stipulation and they made it more stringent on the conditions that you get it. So he isn't even totally right on that, but I am saying why they limited the stipulations. There are some people who would argue that GATE shouldn't exist, and the creation of GATE is ruining the tertiary education level jobs in this country. It's ruining tertiary education in and of itself, because the idea of tertiary education, this is how some people see it, is that it's supposed to be something that somebody had a real interest in pursuing in the first place. This isn't supposed to be just another higher form after you reach Form 6. That's not what tertiary education is even supposed to be. So we've got to put these arguments in context. So all right, the cement argument, as I saw someone make there, that's a good argument. That's a good argument. The government clearly put their thumb on the scale, chased out rock hard. Now the government says, and this is the point I've been making, this is how you build those arguments. The government says they did it because TCL is a local company and they want to help the local market. That's why, you know, they were making sure that the imported cement doesn't come and squeeze out the jobs on the local market. But TCL is majority owned by CEMEX. The MEX in the CEMEX stands for Mexico. So when TCL makes bumper profits, they go over to Mexico. So ease me up on the local company talk, 1. 2, you promised us that this would help. No, the prices of cement wouldn't increase. TCL has been on a steady climb since then. And what the government did now, the government trying now to decrease the duties on imported cement to get somebody to re-enter the market. So by doing that, the government basically admits that they were wrong in the first place. If they have to reduce the duties now to attempt to get another company to re-enter the market, to re-enter the market and kill the TCL monopoly and create competition, the fact that you're doing that now is an admittance that you were wrong to increase it in the first place. And then this is the whole argument I have against PNM. This fits perfectly in the general argument against PNM, that PNM is one that is someone that puts their thumb on the scale in favor of the status quo. So if you are a young entrepreneur, if you are a small business, if you are trying to actually make it right now, you aren't looking for the PNM, because the PNM is looking to help those who are already established. And this is a beautiful argument to fit in there. Oh, remember, the PNM likes the elite, fits in perfectly. That's an argument. That's an argument. And it's effective because it's true and it's provable, and people could look at it, and people could look at the cement prices. They could look at the cement prices when Rockard was here and cement was racing down like it going to reach to $20 just now, and then they could look at the cement prices now and that it keeps climbing up. And look at the trade minister begging new cement producers to come in. And look at Rockard's owner recently saying that they don't trust this move. And then you could say that as the UNC, when we come in, our decisions will not to put a thumb on the scale. We will not be selecting the winners and losers in the market. You are free to come here and make your business successful. Isn't that an argument? Nigel Solomon says the PNM policies benefit the business class. No, the PNM policies benefit the established business class. So, if you were bringing in cars to sell over the 20 million kind of per year mark, PNM is perfect for you. If you were bringing in roll-on, roll-off, 3 cars in a container, trying a thing back in 2010 to 2015, as soon as Imbert and them fellas got in, they make sure that business cut out. Remember 2010 to 2015 when everybody and the sister had an online store? And Imbert came in and said, buying products from the US and selling them locally isn't a real business. You all remember that? And I'm sure you could go and find Imbert has family that buys products from the US and sells them locally and makes a lot of money. I'm sure you could find PNM financiers that do the same. And isn't that a beautiful argument that these people hate the small business and the small man? Isn't that better than PNM too wicked and they hate everybody and they don't like children and they don't like the youths? That's why they close down gate. Nobody buys that. And you know how I know these things? I don't know if the Chiron guy is still here. I read the news. And I actually go past the headline. And when you do that, you recognize that indeed there are a lot of things you could get into details about that the PNM did horribly wrong. And that would show you could possibly lead the country in a better direction. But do they say that? Have you heard any of those things on the UNC platform? Who knows, maybe TCL, some TCL big boy might be a UNC financier too, and we'd never hear anything about that because TCL hedging the bets on both sides. This is what angers me with the UNC. Not that there aren't arguments against the PNM, but the UNC doesn't make the good arguments. And they encourage their supporters to continue making the poor arguments that are easily thrown out. And how even if someone is a PNM supporter, they should want a strong opposition. You don't want a one-party country. It's not to our benefit. What do I think the PNM did right in their 10-year tenure? I actually think the neutrality on Venezuela was right. And I don't know the details of the Dragon Gas deal, so I can't really see. If the Dragon Gas deal is, as they like to portray it, something above the board, that may have been a right thing. Next right thing. I think shrinking the opening of Gate was a good thing. I think if Gate continued, it would not have helped the country anymore. I think limiting the scope of Gate was a good thing. What else? Woo! All things being as they are, I think closing Petrotrin was a good thing. I don't think the government should be in the business of running companies. I don't think the government should be in the business of running companies. Because the state does not work on a profit-making incentive. And for companies to run most efficiently, they need to function with profit-making incentives. Tell them sell FCB. If the government wants to be in any business, it has to be without a controlling stake. Like, we just make profit when the company makes profit, but we can't determine as a state, as a government, the government can't determine any director, they can't determine any chairman, they can't determine nothing. For those who said they want to hear more on Gate, if you promise, humans work, and I always say this, humans work on incentives. They don't work on telling them what to do. They work on incentives. If you tell tertiary institutions that basically every child that applies, once you have a degree that they want, you are going to pay them all the money they ask for. What are the tertiary institutions very likely going to do? Well, the same thing that the American tertiary institutions did when the government started assuring student loans. They started climbing their prices higher and higher and higher. And here's what that does to tertiary institutions. We could look across to the United States, to Canada, and see what some of these tertiary institutions have become over the years. The teaching staff remains this. The administration does this. You get a ballooning of the bureaucracy in these companies because now they have a lot of money to slush around and they have to hire a lot more administrators to do that. So the real intent of the university, which is to educate children, becomes a lost thing. And it's now a job-making scenario. Put it back in the business area. And the idea of a lot of the university degrees being at a price is that it's supposed to be seen as it was an investment, where if a degree is going to cost me $100,000, I would have to look at this degree with the people who would help me pay for it and determine if the investment is going to be able to pay back afterwards. But if we're telling people we would pay for you to do $100,000 degree in primate dance therapy, and we're just willing to pay for it. Well, of course they're going to do it. And of course they're going to waste it, because it's not costing them anything. And then you end up with the problem. The Kyron guy was talking about trades. Actually, Gate helped to delete some of the trades from existence. Do you know where most people get into trade? And when we say people, by people I mean young men. When most young men get into trade? After they finish school. So if the young man who was not generally inclined to real academics finishes school and doesn't have a free path to go and study a nonsense degree and lime in UE for 5 years, what is he going to do? Go and find a job. But no, we extend childhood, we extend adolescence. So back in the 17th century, a 20-year-old was well on his way to his own family, his own home. The 20-year-olds were running countries and doing revolutions about the place. But now a 30-year-old is still a child. Why? We have dragged out the adolescent period. We treat, and what happened really close after Gate came into play is the university began treating the university students like high school students again, because the whole system began to become something like just another step in high school. That's not what university students are supposed to be. Incentives. Now, that's not to say I don't see the massive benefit of Gate. Gate has a massive benefit. That's why I say to fine-tune it makes sense. So, people who qualify legitimately for degrees that are worth it makes sense. People who are qualified academically but are struggling financially, that makes sense. Just saying all tertiary education is free, I think it was a good sounding idea more than it was an actual good idea. All right, that's all I have for now, folks. That's all I have for now. Wow, we're well on our way to midnight. Hope I could get up in the morning. Majority of university graduates I know so sheltered. That's now. That's now. Look back in 2000 and look back at a university graduate in 2005. You'll see a whole different character. All right, people. I'll see you guys in the next Mindful Live. I hope you're educated, informed, and entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live Show. I'll see you guys again tomorrow for the next Mindful Live Show around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, hold it down. Stay well, stay good, stay inside. Outside, they sketchy bad. Go and marry somebody, child, and make some good Trini children. We need people to pay pension when we get old. Our population is declining, people. Snap, snap. Are you over your 2.1? You make your 2.1 yet? We need people to pay pension. All right, laters, folks. Hold it down. I'm out. Bye. Wait, you know, I didn't check my YouTube chat. I hope YouTube wasn't balling at. All right, YouTube wasn't shouting at me. Laters, YouTube.